They turned me into a girl for their experiment. I never considered myself special. If anything, I felt like I was fading into the background of my own life. My name is Ethan Carter, a 21-year-old college student studying biological sciences at Westbrook University. From the outside, my life seemed perfectly normal: average grades, a small group of friends, and a part-time job in the university lab. But inside, I felt like something was missing. Like I was waiting for something to happen, for life to begin. Growing up, I had always been the quiet, observant type. The kind of guy who blended in during group projects. Never the center of attention, but always the one who got things done. I wasn't exactly unhappy, just disconnected. I went through the motions, studied hard, and avoided conflict. But deep down, there was a nagging feeling that I was supposed to be more than this, though I had no idea what more even meant. My days were predictable. I spent hours in the lab, running tests and analyzing data, hoping to impress my professors. Science was my escape, the one place where I felt in control. Unlike my own life, experiments had rules, logic, and predictable outcomes. There were no surprises, no uncomfortable emotions to wrestle with, just data and results. But when I was alone, truly alone, I couldn't ignore the thoughts that lingered at the back of my mind. The quiet curiosity about what it would feel like to step outside of myself, to be seen differently. Sometimes, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't feel like the person staring back at me was really me. It wasn't something I talked about. It wasn't something I could talk about. How could I, when I didn't even understand it myself? I buried those thoughts beneath routine, convincing myself they didn't matter, that they were fleeting, meaningless. But the truth was, they never really went away. Then, everything changed when Dr. Monroe, one of the most respected researchers on campus, approached me with an offer, an opportunity to be part of a groundbreaking experiment, one that could challenge everything I thought I knew about myself. At the time, I didn't know what I was signing up for. I didn't know it would turn my life upside down. And I definitely didn't know that by the end of it, I would no longer recognize the person staring back at me in the mirror. But maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what I needed. It started with a simple conversation. I was finishing up my shift in the lab, logging the day's results, when Dr. Monroe approached me. She was a brilliant scientist, known for pushing boundaries, and I had always admired her work from afar. "Ethan," she said, leaning against the counter, "how would you like to be part of something groundbreaking?" I looked up from my screen, surprised. "Groundbreaking?" She smiled. "A controlled experiment. Something that could change the way we understand human adaptation. We need a test subject. Someone open-minded. Someone willing to step outside their comfort zone." I hesitated. "What kind of experiment?" She tilted her head, studying me. "We're conducting research on gender expression and identity, how appearance, hormones, and environment shape self-perception. It's a full-scale transformation study. And you," she paused, her gaze unwavering, "you'd be the perfect candidate." I blinked, feeling a strange mix of confusion and intrigue. "You want me to what? Pretend to be a girl?" "Not just pretend," she corrected. "Live as one. Fully. Clothes, mannerisms, voice training, everything. You'd undergo a temporary, reversible hormone treatment to simulate physiological changes. We want to study the psychological impact." A laugh almost slipped from my lips, but something in her expression stopped me. She wasn't joking. I don't know," I stammered. "Why me?" Dr. Monroe folded her arms. "You're dedicated, adaptable, and, frankly, you have features that would make the transformation seamless." My stomach twisted at her words. This was insane. The rational part of me wanted to decline on the spot. But beneath the shock, I felt something else. A spark of curiosity. A tug at something deep inside me I couldn't name. "You don't have to decide now," she said. "But if you say yes, you'll experience something few people ever do. A chance to see the world from a completely different perspective." I swallowed hard. My mind screamed no, but my heart wasn't so sure. I told myself I wouldn't do it. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of my dorm room, replaying Dr. Monroe's words in my head. Live as a girl. Fully. The idea was absurd. Impossible. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had seen something in me, something I wasn't ready to admit. The next day, I avoided the lab, afraid that seeing Dr. Monroe would make it harder to say no. But by the afternoon, my curiosity got the best of me, and I found myself texting her. Me, if I say yes, what happens first? She responded almost immediately. Dr. Monroe, we start small. Hair, clothes, posture. We ease you into it. No pressure. No pressure. Right. Because agreeing to change everything about myself was totally casual. Still, I found myself standing outside Dr. Monroe's office the next morning, heart pounding. She greeted me with an approving nod. Glad you're open to exploring. That was the word she used, exploring. Not changing. Not becoming. Just exploring. We'll begin with something simple, she said, handing me a plain white box. Take this home. Try it. See how you feel. I opened it hesitantly, my stomach twisting when I saw the contents. A wig, foundation, mascara, and a simple dress. Wait, you want me to? Only if you're comfortable, she said. Consider it an experiment within an experiment. I almost refused, almost handed the box back. But instead, I swallowed hard, nodded, and took it home. That night, standing in front of my mirror, I felt ridiculous. The dress hung from a hanger on my door, the wig resting on my desk like it was mocking me. This is stupid, but my hands had a mind of their own. I unzipped the dress and slipped it over my head. The fabric was soft, unfamiliar. My reflection looked wrong at first, Ethan, but not. I hesitated before reaching for the wig, adjusting it over my short hair. My heart pounded as I smoothed out the synthetic strands, covering my face with shaking hands. When I lowered them, I froze. Someone else was staring back at me. The changes were subtle, but undeniable. The wig framed my face differently, softening my sharp angles. The dress gave me a shape I'd never noticed before. My breath hitched. Why does this feel right? The next day, I told Dr. Monroe. It felt weird, I admitted, but also kind of. I don't know. I struggled for the right word. Liberating, she suggested. I swallowed. Maybe. She smiled. Then let's take the next step. I should have backed out. But instead, I found myself in a private lab room later that week, where an assistant named Lila guided me through posture training and voice exercises. Relax, she said as I struggled to mimic the way she walked, more fluid and natural than my usual stiff stride. It's not about acting like a woman, it's about feeling the movement. I scoffed. And what if I don't feel it? She smirked. Then why are you here? I didn't have an answer. Each day, the changes became more noticeable. The way I carried myself, the way I spoke, softening my voice slightly, learning how to shape my words differently. It was subtle, but effective. By the end of the week, Lila handed me a fitted blouse and a skirt. Try these, she said with a knowing look. I hesitated but took them. And when I walked out of that dressing room, looking at myself in the full-length mirror, something shifted inside me. I didn't see Ethan anymore. I saw someone else, someone I wasn't ready to name. Yet, it didn't take long for the cracks to show. By the second week, the experiment felt less like pretend and more like something real. Too real. Dr. Monroe and Lila guided me through every step, but they couldn't control the outside world. And the outside world was brutal. The first challenge came unexpectedly. I was supposed to test my appearance in public, a simple task. Just walk across campus, blend in, and observe how people reacted. It was an exercise in confidence, Lila had said. I barely made it 2 blocks. At first, no one looked twice, but then a group of guys passed by. One of them slowed, eyes narrowing. Wait, dude, is that? Panic shot through me. I turned quickly, pulling my cardigan tighter around myself, but it was too late. I heard the whispering, the snickers. I ducked into the nearest building, heart racing. My hands trembled as I pressed against the cold tile wall. I shouldn't have come out. I wasn't ready. When I got back to the lab, Lila noticed my face immediately. What happened? I shook my head. Nothing. Just, this was a mistake. She crossed her arms. One awkward encounter and you're quitting. I glared. They knew, Lila. So? I stared at her, incredulous. So? You don't get it. They were laughing. She exhaled, softening. Look, I'm not saying it's easy. It's terrifying, I know. But confidence isn't about never feeling afraid. It's about pushing through despite it. I wanted to believe her. I wasn't sure I did. The second challenge was even worse. The day I wore makeup outside the lab for the first time, my roommate, Jason, walked in as I was removing it. I barely had time to shut the bathroom mirror before he froze in the doorway. "What the hell are you doing?" My stomach dropped. "Nothing." Jason's eyes darted to the foundation wipe in my hand. His expression twisted. "Are you serious?" I scrambled for an excuse. A joke. Anything. But nothing came. He scoffed. "Jesus, man. What? Are you turning into some kind of freak now?" Something inside me snapped. I stood up, jaw clenched. "Maybe I am. You got a problem with that?" Jason took a step back, disgust clear on his face. "You know what? Do whatever you want. Just don't bring that shit near me." He slammed the door. I sank to the floor, hands shaking. For the first time, I wondered if this whole experiment was a terrible mistake. But then, a small victory. Lila dragged me out for coffee the next day, insisting I try again. I hesitated at the cafe entrance, nerves tangling in my stomach. But Lila nudged me forward. "Confidence," she whispered. I took a breath and stepped inside. No one stared. No one laughed. The barista smiled at me like she would at anyone else. "What can I get for you, hon?" "Hon." The word sent a jolt through me. For the first time in days, I smiled. Maybe, just maybe, I could do this. The moment everything changed wasn't dramatic. There was no grand revelation, no sudden epiphany. It was quiet, almost unnoticeable, until I realized I had stepped across an invisible threshold. It happened one evening when I stood in front of the mirror, no longer seeing a stranger. I had spent weeks adjusting, learning how to walk differently, how to apply makeup with a steadier hand, how to control my voice so it felt natural rather than forced. But tonight was different. Tonight, I wasn't just practicing. I was being. I smoothed my dress, one I had picked out myself this time, rather than something Lila had handed me. A soft lavender, flowing in light. It felt right in a way I couldn't explain. My hair, styled in loose waves, framed my face in a way that made my reflection feel real. I reached for my lipstick, pausing before I applied it. Was this what confidence felt like? A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. "Hey," Lila called. "Are you ready?" I turned the knob and stepped into the light. Lila's breath hitched. "Oh my God," she murmured. I shifted nervously. "What?" Her lips curled into a slow smile. "You." I swallowed. "Me." She nodded, stepping closer. "You look comfortable." The words sank deep. Comfortable. For so long, I had felt like an imposter, like I was wearing a mask. But now, standing here in my own skin, I realized something. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was me. When we walked out together, something in the way I moved had changed. My shoulders weren't hunched. My gaze wasn't darting to the floor. For the first time, I wasn't just enduring the experiment. I was living it, and I didn't want it to end. The moment of truth arrived sooner than I expected. I had spent weeks adjusting, testing the waters of my new self, but nothing compared to stepping into the outside world. Truly stepping into it, no safety net, no comforting hand to guide me. Tonight, there were no disguises, no excuses, no hiding. Lila and I stood at the entrance of a crowded venue, an upscale lounge, bustling with conversation and clinking glasses. She had convinced me to come, saying it would be a way to own my identity, to prove to myself that I could exist in the world as her, as me. But as I stood frozen in the doorway, doubt slithered in. What if someone saw through me? What if I was just fooling myself? Lila squeezed my hand. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. But I did. I wanted to. I took a breath and stepped forward. The first few steps felt impossible. The weight of every imagined gaze pressed down on me, my heart hammering so loudly I swore people could hear it. Then, something unexpected happened. No one stared. No one pointed. No one whispered. I was just another woman walking into a lounge. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. The thing I had feared most, judgment, exposure, rejection, was nothing more than a shadow, a ghost that only existed in my mind. Lila led me to the bar, her smile proud but patient, giving me the space to process. And then, the real test came. A stranger, tall, charming, confident, approached with an easy smile. "Can I buy you a drink?" My breath caught. This was it, the moment where the illusion would shatter. But instead of fear, something else stirred. A quiet confidence. I smiled. "Sure." The conversation flowed effortlessly. He laughed at my jokes, listened when I spoke. He saw me, and I saw myself, not as an experiment, not as a trick or a performance, as real, as her. When he asked for my number, I hesitated, but not out of fear. I looked at Lila. She gave me a knowing smile. I turned back and, with steady fingers, typed my number into his phone. The moment was small, almost mundane. But to me, it was everything. Because for the first time, I wasn't afraid. And I knew without a doubt that I had crossed the point of no return. Life didn't change overnight. There was no dramatic moment where everything clicked into place. Instead, it was a series of small, quiet victories. Like waking up in the morning and choosing my outfit without hesitation. Like walking through campus, my head held high, no longer shrinking into myself. Like hearing my name, my real name, spoken out loud and feeling nothing but warmth. At first, people were surprised. Some took a second glance, others asked questions. But the world didn't stop turning. The sun still rose, and life carried on. And so did I. Lila remained by my side, her unwavering support a constant reminder that I wasn't alone in this. "You know," she teased one afternoon as we lounged in my dorm, "I never actually thought you'd go through with it." I smirked. Neither did I. We laughed, but beneath the humor, there was something deeper, an understanding that I had changed in ways neither of us could have predicted. My confidence grew, not just in how I presented myself, but in how I felt about myself. The fear that once gripped me had loosened, replaced by something stronger, acceptance. One day, as I passed by a mirror, I caught my reflection and stopped. For the first time, I didn't see a stranger. I saw her. I saw me. And I smiled. Not because I had become someone new, but because I had finally become who I was meant to be. Change is never easy. It's terrifying to step into the unknown, to face the fear of judgment, of rejection, of losing yourself. But sometimes, the scariest path is the one that leads you home. I spent so much of my life trapped by doubt, believing that who I truly was could never exist beyond a fleeting thought or a secret dream. But the truth is, we are never as trapped as we think we are. The moment I stopped fighting myself, the moment I embraced what I had feared for so long, I found something I never expected: freedom. So if you're standing on the edge, unsure whether to take the leap, remember this: you deserve to be who you are. Fully, unapologetically, beautifully. And once you find the courage to step forward, you'll realize you were never meant to be anyone else.